This week, Britain has found itself once more in the crosshairs of Vladimir Putin's proxies, not through tanks on our borders or submarines in our channel, but through words, bombastic, bellicose, and chilling in their theatricality. Vladimir Solovyov, the propagandist-in-chief posing as broadcaster, has accused Britain and the United States of directly waging war on Russia. Russia presented as the victim. His threats, echoed by the Kremlin's favourite siren, Margarita Simonian, included not only dire predictions of military retaliation, but outright declarations that we will kill them all. We need to pause, not to panic, but to examine, because what looks like menace may in fact be grotesque performance designed for the domestic stage, not the battlefield. This is not the first time that the Kremlin and its cronies have dangled the prospect of World War III. In November 2024, Putin threatened a missile strike on the UK in retaliation for long-range weapons used in Ukraine. Dmitry Medvedev, once seen as the liberal alternative, now growls that Trump's criticism of Putin could spark the really bad thing, that is, global war. And Solovyov's performance took a darker turn in response to Keir Starmer's so-called Coalition of the Willing, a group of 26 European nations preparing for Russian duplicity in any future ceasefire. Solovyov declared that the UK, France, Germany and the Baltic states would suffer consequences the likes of which you've never seen. Theatrics worthy of a Bond villain. And what these threats betray is not Russian strength, but Russian fear. Russia knows that it's not winning. It fears the cohesion of Europe, the quiet resolve of the West, and above all the strategic patience of Ukraine. And Putin's strength, once measured in tanks, is now a desperate composite of propaganda, repression and nuclear ambiguity. And these broadcasts are not meant to frighten us, they're meant to reassure them, the Russian people, that they are still feared, that their president is still powerful, that their president isn't in a fridge, that the world still trembles at the name of Russia, but it doesn't. It watches wearily as an aging regime of variously ill and geriatric try to conjure terror out of sound bites. And what are the Americans? Trump, ever unpredictable, has called Putin crazy and warned that Russia is playing with fire. Yet even his envoy speaks the language of appeasement, waiting on Russian memos like an anxious pen pal. We're in a new kind of Cold War, not one of iron curtains, but of algorithmic fog, and the weapons are missiles, yes, but they're also memes and media and misdirection. Still, we should not dismiss these threats as empty, because words, when repeated enough, become policy, and policy in Putin's Russia can turn lethal overnight, as Ukraine knows. When Simonian says they will perish, she's not bluffing. She's preparing the psychological ground for escalation, and we've seen this tactic before in Chechnya, in Georgia, in Crimea, and now in the heart of Ukraine. The pattern is wearingly familiar. Provoke, claim victimhood, escalate, then gaslight. And Russia's threats against Britain are part of a campaign of strategic intimidation to make us question our resolve, to sow doubt in public discourse, and to split the West along the seams of cowardice and compromise. So what should we do? First, we need to recognise this for what it is. It's not a sign of strength, but a cry of weakness. Russia is afraid. Afraid of its own people, particularly its youth. Afraid of its economy, of time itself. Afraid of not being able to go to the shops and buy butter without a key to unlock the padlocks that are encasing the butter before the butter itself goes off. Mildew. Is it mildew or is it rancid? Rancid butter. The louder its propagandists shout, the more brittle the regime becomes. Second, we must not match the hysteria with hysteria. Instead, we must respond with unity and calm, with truth, with the boring, unsexy work of diplomacy, deterrence and diplomatic strength, and we must continue talking, even to Putin, through the fridge door. Putin thrives on chaos. Our task is to deprive him of that chaos. And third, we need to hold our nerve. The threats from Solovyov and Simonian not only are not only preludes to apocalypse, but echoes of a regime whose ideology is crumbling faster than their economy. As Churchill once said, the truth is incontrovertible. Panic may resent it, ignorance may deride it, malice may distort it, but there it is. And Russia's bark is loud, but Britain and the West must remember who we are, and more importantly, what we are not. We are not afraid. And we're not liars.